Blah, blah, blah. Alright there, you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the medieval theme format where I, the Crown Jules of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you, yes, you the person who is, because they are over the age of 35, very uncontrollably excited by the fact that I'll be getting new kitchen cabinets. I know, it is incredibly boring, but trust me, it will happen to you. It will happen to you and you won't even know it, and you will be as happy as I am now about such a sad fact. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week, and this week we have none other to thank than Castle 4473, very catchy name, for their suggestion of video games that were so big, so gargantuan, so monolithically huge that they possibly couldn't fail. Right? But they still did anyway, because of terrible business decisions, because of questionable practices that they put in their games, or just spending so much damn money that they ended up not being able to pay things back after paying it forward. So yes, let's have a chat about these giant games that turned into giant stinkers. Or, as the YouTube name will say, 8 video games that couldn't fail, that still failed. Number 8, Payday 3. Now, multiplayer heist game Payday 2 was such a stonking hit, selling more than 40 million copies as of 2023, that it simply seemed like a third Payday could not possibly fall flat. Now, it did take an entire decade for Payday 3 to materialise, so you certainly couldn't accuse the bean counters of rushing out a sequel to milk the fan base, and with the game also releasing simultaneously on Xbox Game Pass, how could it not be anything less than a viral game of slice and hotness, slice hots. That is a technique that Big Pitch and I have concocted for our new karate dojo, slice hots. You've heard of wax on, wax off, slice hots. Your enemies will be burnt by your kung fu. But Payday 3 received wildly mixed reviews from critics and players alike, both for the, severe lack of content available on launch and widespread server issues, which when combined with the game's always online requirement, left many unable to actually play it at all. Now, though it peaked at an impressive 69 1,112 players on Steam during release week, those numbers quickly fell off a cliff, with most swiftly returning to Payday 2 instead. Within a month of Payday 3's release, it had just 10% of the concurrent players playing Payday 2, which is a shambolic, embarrassing rejection of the sequel anywhere you hot slice it. You have to make that noise. But you know what, it probably sold well, right? Well, not quite, because developer Starbreeze reported in 2024 that Payday 3 sold well below expectations, causing them a loss of $18.5 million. All the while, Payday 2 continues to regularly attract 25,000 players at any one time on Steam alone, so yeah, not a great move. Number 7, Star Wars Outlaws. Now, Star Wars has remained phenomenally popular for the better part of a half-century, and so, in theory, a AAA video game based on the brand shouldn't have any trouble finding success, right? What's that? Or do we come up with, that name of damn it, we came up with a name for a Star Wars character. Farty McThreepipes or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Damn it. Oh well, put that character in the bin because I can't remember him. I mean, just look at the last 2 Star Wars Battlefront games, which despite their many flaws, both managed to shift units by the bucket load, which here in the UK is a metric that you can set your watch by. You just say to your mate down the road, can I borrow a cup of nails? Why bother a cup when you can borrow a bucket? I don't need that many nails for a start. Now, how could Star Wars Outlaws, a new open-world AAA single-player adventure game, possibly fail then? Given that the game was being published by Ubisoft, the king of turning 7 out of 10s into commercial smash hits, it just didn't seem possible. But despite being broadly well received, Outlaws underperformed financially, leaving industry analysts scrambling to explain how a glossy, cinematic, open-world Star Wars game had failed to find an audience. Some pointed to a general fatigue with open-world games, others suggested the game's divisive protagonist, and then there is the rather wobbly state of the Star Wars franchise at present, which has left many casual fans just bouncing straight off the IP in totality. It was an unfortunate confluence of circumstances which ensured that while Outlaws is a very whelming game, it just wasn't enough to persuade people to open their wallets and dish out the credits. Number 6. Halo Infinite. Now, Halo is as reliable as video game franchises get, even though the more recent entries into the hit shooter series haven't been, all that great. They have all delivered a pretty easy commercial success for Microsoft at large. And Halo Infinite, with its tantalizing open-world design, seemed primed to become an absolute behemoth, an ambitious step up for the franchise which would keep players hooked with its narcotically addictive multiplayer mode. I tell you what, even when I think about the good times that I had playing SWAT back on Halo 3, I don't think, was it in Halo 2? It might have been in Halo 2 as well, but I remember just like headshots only, battle rifles, that was it, and magnums, that's all you need. I will see you on the dance floor where shooting me in the shins will do nothing, but if you point a gun right at my clavicle and above, you're a winner. Now, the game at least got off to a pretty strong start when its free-to-play multiplayer portion launched in November 2021, peaking on Steam with a phenomenal 256,619 concurrent players. Whew. That's a lot. However, with a lack of substantial launch content and a slow drip feed of updates, players quickly bounced off the multiplayer entirely. And even once the campaign launched 3 weeks later, there was considerable disappointment in the repetitive, lifeless open world, forgettable story, and the absence of online co-op, which wasn't fully patched into the game for almost an entire year. I'm sorry, no matter however you hot slice it, that is just so bad. How can you think to yourself that oh, what do people think when they think of Halo? They think of Master Chief, obviously. They think of the Flood. They think of that one elite going, "Urgh!" But beyond that, they think of the multiplayer. That's what they think of. So to them just be like, oh yeah, so couch co-op or co-op mode that you basically sold the entire game franchise on for many, many years. Nah. By late 2022, it was reported that Halo Infinite had underperformed commercially and fallen far short of Microsoft's expectations for it to be a popular live service title like Destiny or Fortnite. In 2025, barely 3 years after launch, the game has just a few thousand concurrent players on Steam, which is a poor result for one of the most popular and acclaimed video game franchises, and say it with me, kids, and Big Pitch, of all time! Number 5, SimCity 2013. Now, there was much pre-release excitement for 2013's SimCity reboot, given the general popularity of the city simulation series, as well as the fact that fans had been waiting an entire decade for a follow-up to SimCity 4. There was simply no reason to believe that developer Maxis wouldn't drop another stone-cold banger, and releasing it early in 2013 with no direct competition whatsoever, why wouldn't it be a huge commercial smash hit? While despite SimCity's mechanics being generally well received by critics, Maxis' hard work was undone by greedy initiatives implemented presumably at the behest of publisher EA, who infamously won back-to-back Worst Company in America awards in 2012 and 2013. That takes quite some doing. Because SimCity could only be played with a persistent internet connection, server issues on launch left players completely unable to actually play the game that they paid for, and worse still, some players lost the save data that they had made progress with. The launch was an abject disaster, made worse by the fact that Maxis initially refused to release an offline patch and ultimately only did so a year later, long after many frustrated fans had just completely abandoned the game. The calamitous release caused SimCity to fall short commercially, effectively killing the franchise and resulting in the closure of Maxis Emeryville. But a decade later, SimCity's place has been quite ably filled by a spiritual successor from Paradox Interactive, Cities Skylines, which has the good sense to allow offline play. Oh, fancy that. Fancy that, eh? Number 4, The Order 1886. I am growing so tired of talking about this game, because every single time I talk about it, I think about how I got so hyped for it. I thought that graphics are never going to get better than this, and trust me, it's still a bloody good looking game. But at the same time, I was just like, only 4 hours long, is it? Oh, ha, heave. Ooh, I couldn't even fit a moderate game of Warhammer in that time. And you want how much for it? Now, on your way, mate. Take your snake oil with you. But I tell you what, leave that cure for boldness that apparently you've got, because I know a little guy who might want to give it a try. It's Big Pitch. He's going bold behind his feathers, Dad. That's why he's always, you only see him from one side. He's very, very self-conscious about it. So be kind. Now, it did get pretty decent reviews. Mixed to good, but it was tempered a lot by the repetitive gameplay and the stunningly short length of the game. And the length really was the problem here, because Sony charged players a AAA price tag for a game that could be beaten in an afternoon and had zero replayability whatsoever. No multiplayer, no nothing, no extras. I mean, what could you do? You could go around and pick up the little collectibles that were there. Oh, a photo. Does this unlock a new piece of content or dialogue between the characters to give a richer understanding of the world around me? Nope. And also, it's not even a photo related to the thing that we're doing. Wow. I could pick up a photo in real life and do that. In fact, I'll tell you what, look. I'll pick up, the only things I've got here are either NDA content or stuff that has got my bank details on. So maybe I'm not doing a very good point of proving this. Anyway, they pumped a load of money into the order. They told us it was going to be the next big thing, and it turned out to be not even a thing that could last a day. So yeah, get out of here. Number 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Now, Call of Duty games are often compared to fast food in a derogatory sense, but that analogy actually also implies that, in the very least, that the FPS franchise reliably offers up familiar, basically satisfying mulch. And that was more or less true until the release of 2023's Modern Warfare 3. Now, up to this point, it was just assumed that each new Call of Duty would tout a baseline level of quality that, in the very least, would make it an easy breezy fun time. But Modern Warfare 3 was the first, and to date only, mainline entry in the series to receive mainly negative reviews, with much criticism being levelled against its piecemeal campaign, as well as the multiplayer suite's lack of new maps on launch, with players instead having to settle for remasters of classic maps. Now, don't get me wrong, I love playing Nuketown as much as the next guy, but if I've just played Nuketown for 7 hours straight on a previous game, and I get the new game and I play it again, I'm just going to be like, what's the bloody point? What's going on? But while Modern Warfare 3 did still turn a profit, the negative aura that plagued the game's release caused it to sell significantly less than the previous game, Modern Warfare 2. The GOAT. Above all else, it was proof perfect that Call of Duty was not a bulletproof IP, and that if Activision lazily shipped a slop bucket production, they'd suffer financially for it. Thankfully, the series enjoyed quite the rebound with last year's Black Ops 6, which scored strong reviews and the largest launch weekend in the franchise's history. Well done, well done, well done. Number 2, Marvel's Avengers. Now, the commercial appeal of a co-op live service Avengers game speaks for itself. What's that? You'd like to be Captain America, I can be the Hulk, and our 2 other mates can be the other ones? Let's go! Let's smash some faces in! Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah! Smash the faces in! Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah! What I'm trying to say is that if you can't make that game even a mediocre success, what the hell are you even doing? Well, let's talk about Marvel's Avengers again. Bloody hell. Because releasing in September 2020, Marvel's Avengers seemed to be perfectly positioned to fill that void left by the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, due to the pandemic, went 2 years without releasing a new film between the summer of 2019 and the summer of 2021. Or as some would call it, a blessing, because every single Marvel film since has been... let's be generous, guys. Even the big fans out there. Let's face it. Is there anyone that's really peaked over a 5 out of 10? Come on now, be honest. Be honest. Now, other audiences were hungry for more Marvel content, and the pandemic meant that people were at home gaming, and the game was even being developed by acclaimed AAA outfit, the Tomb Raider reboot developers Crystal Dynamics. It just seemed like the game would be a critic-proof success. Yet, that wasn't quite the case. Marvel's Avengers was a strong seller out of the gate despite lukewarm reviews, yet the repetitious, content-lacking nature of its live service gameplay loop caused a player count to just fall significantly off a cliff, all the while general sales hit a hard stop. The commercial underperformance led publisher Square Enix to report losses of $63 million during the fiscal year that it launched, before Marvel's Avengers was then shut down and delisted in September 2023. A 3-year life cycle for a mega-budget video game clearly designed to be an ongoing experience is nothing short of disastrous, and something that few observers actually saw coming. And number 1, Final Fantasy XIV. Square Enix categorically knocked it out of the park with their first stab at a Final Fantasy MMORPG, given that by 2012, Final Fantasy XI had become the most profitable game in the entire franchise. It simply made sense that their MMO follow-up, Final Fantasy XIV, would repeat the very same success, and with all of the resources that Square Enix had, it would likely be one of the few MMORPGs that could possibly hold a candle to the king of the genre, World of Warcraft, which itself is only second to Big Pitch's Grand Big Adventure Mega Edition. If you've not played it, missing out, boys. Missing out. However, Final Fantasy XIV was widely panned on launch due to its buggy gameplay, atrocious interface, and the general feeling that Square Enix sent an unfinished game out in the world to die. The fallout was immediate. Key personnel were swiftly removed from working on the game, a planned PS3 version was delayed and then later cancelled, and Square Enix dropped their fiscal expectations for the year by a brutal 90%. But the real shock came the next year when the company decided to scrap this iteration of the game entirely and rebuild it from the ground up. Ultimately, Final Fantasy XIV was closed in November 2012, with its replacement, A Realm Reborn, launching the next summer. And hoo boy, that game was so much better. Because to Square Enix's credit, they were contrite about the first iteration's failure and worked hard to make the second attempt a worthy one of the franchise's good name. As of last year, Final Fantasy XIV racked up an impressive 30 million players and surpassed Final Fantasy XI as the series' most commercially successful release to date. Well done, bravo, lots of money, greasy, oily money to go around. Hooray. I'll be more positive. Hooray! Hooray! Hooray, Batman! And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video games that couldn't fail, that still failed. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. And if you want to chat to me on the social medias, you can do so by going over to Blue Sky and Instagram, where I'm at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. You can follow my lovely and wonderfully patient editor, Sai, over on her social medias up there as well. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Even though we spoke today a lot about video games that couldn't fail but did anyway, you know what, my friends? Failure is, unfortunately, a part of our day-to-day existence, as most of our lives are built on small failures in different means or another. But that doesn't mean that you have failed overall as a person or deep within yourself, because you need to forgive yourself for mistakes that you've made in the past. Learn from mistakes and shortcomings from this so that you better go forward and make sure that you don't make them again, or you have the tools mentally or otherwise in order to not repeat them or change the outcome. Failure is a harsh teacher. It really is, because it shows you your shortcomings and maybe your limitations, but at the same time it also highlights where you can potentially grow. And that is the positive way to look at these things. Not to say I fell short and will never try again, but maybe that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. But I will work harder, I will speak to people about my problems to make those problems seem less, or even ask for help in general to push forward with it to get over those hurdles. All right? That's all I want for you, is just to live a healthy and happy life and for you to achieve your greatness. And I know that all of you are bloody great. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.